40,000 Shias massacred.
Whoa,
East. Ismail then responded to the letter by sending Salim a box full of opium to mock him, basically calling him a crackhead. Ouch. So,
alright, suggestion for me,
before we begin, I would like to mention that there's some
to me,
controversy around Ismail's
by me,
on whether he was Persian or Azerbaijani. Personally, I don't really think it matters all that much, but if you had to put a gun up to my
enjoy
head,
me watching some good old Bajan drink. Well, I said Bajan, but people can't pronounce Bajan, Barbadian drink. You could just say that.
I would say that he was ethnically Azerbaijani, but culturally Persian. Tell me what you think in the comments, though. Okay, on to the show. Iran entering the gunpowder era was in quite...
Okay. People really don't understand the difference between ethnicity and like race, right? Race does not equal ethnicity. I don't know why so many people don't seem to understand that. A race can help make up a ethnicity. It can, but it does not define an ethnicity. Culture also helps with an ethnicity, okay? Like, a culture is a part of an ethnicity. You can't have an ethnicity without a culture, okay? I'm gonna talk more about that probably in a different video, but the video just began and I don't want to yap too much, you know? So, but that's just something that people don't seem to get. But maybe another time.
Quite a shaky position. The Timurid Empire had come and gone, and most of Iran was being ruled by a successor, or should I say rather imposter state, the Akunlu, a confederacy of Turkoman tribes. Not just that, but Iran hasn't been ruled by a native Persian dynasty for almost a millennia. But all of that was about to change, all because of a certain Persian redhead by the name of Ismail. Ismail I.
So many people asking me to react to this guy. Let's see what he's made of.
Ismail was born on the 17th of July, 1487, in the city of Ardabil, to the parents Halina Begum and Sheikh Haydar. On his mother's side, he was descended from the Akinlu ruler Uzur Hassan, as well as the Georgian king Alexander I and Byzantine emperor John IV. While on his father's side, he descended from a long line of Sufis, the Savafid order. Because of his family ties, Ismail had a pretty ethnically diverse makeup, as well as growing up speaking both Persian and Azerbaijani. His father Haydar was the political and religious leader of Ardabil, making Ismail royalty. Now, we can't talk about Ismail without talking about the Qizilbash. The Qizilbash were a group of Turkoman tribes living in eastern Anatolia and Kurdistan. Their name means redheads, because of the red hats they wore. Originally a slur against them, eventually the word Qizilbash was embraced by them as their identity.
Why am I laughing, you might be asking? That's what black people need to do. Black people need to stop getting offended by the N-word and just embrace it. Bro, you know what's funny is whenever I see people in my comments, right, or just in general try to be like racist to me and call me like the hard R, like, it's funny when you realize that it doesn't bother me when I start to play along. Like, I'll literally just look at them and be like, yeah, yeah, I'm a big black, you know, ER. Can't say it out loud because, you know, don't want my channel to get deleted, right? And, you know, I do this both in person and in my comments, or just overall in general, over on YouTube or anywhere else or any social media. And the look on like the racist people's face, like either in person or the realization in their comments. Hold on a second. The realization over in the comments as they slowly start to realize, like, yo, I don't give a shit. Like, yo, this doesn't bother me, bro. I literally let my white friends say the N-word around me. Like, I don't care. I genuinely do not care. Everyone knows me as, oh yeah, he's the black guy that doesn't really give a shit about all that type of stuff. So when I see people try to be like racist to me in my comments, and then it slowly dawns on them that that I don't really give a shit, it's like hilarious watching and witnessing as their brain just fries, right? And they slowly start to essentially just malfunction because they don't know what to say. Because they think that I'm like one of these like liberal black people who give a blast about a word that honestly is just nothing but a word. All right, let's continue.
The Qizilbash were excellent in the battlefield as both infantry and cavalry, but most importantly, were extremely loyal to the Safavid family. Anyways, Ismail's father Haydar was kind of an idiot. He thought he could just raid his neighbors' lands without consequence, which, you know, pissed off his neighbors. The Shivin Shah, which was ruled by a certain Farouk Yazar, who proceeded to go over to Haydar, battle, and kill him, annexing his lands and marching to Arnabil. There he killed Ismail's older brother and causing Ismail himself, only 7 at the time, to flee into hiding in a place called Gilean. There, the young Ismail was taught by some of the greatest scholars in all of Persia, where he grew a passion for the military, history, and poetry. Persian poetry.
That's not foreshadowing.
Ever wondered what your home...
Ismail saw it was finally time to retake his homeland. He reunited the old Qizilbash supporters of his father at Urzakan and started to march to battle for Rukh.
I really hope this music isn't copyrighted.
You might be wondering, how on earth is a 7th grader supposed to lead a professional army? Well, you see, the thing you need to know about Ismail was that he was a child prodigy in military tactics. So when the two armies met, Ismail completely decimated Yazar's forces, despite being heavily outnumbered. Yazar himself was captured and promptly executed, avenging his father's death. This kid's got balls! Ismail then annexed not just his father's old territory, but all of the Shivin Shah state, and proclaimed himself Shah of Azerbaijan. He did allow the Shivin Shah family to keep ruling the city of Baku, however, under Ismail's supervision, of course. Someone who wasn't particularly pleased by Ismail's success was the ruler of the Akunlu, Alvent, who was worried that this Ismail kid would cause more trouble. So he set out, crossing the Araz River to put down Ismail's new kingdom. Everyone around Ismail freaked out at the mere thought of having to fight the Imperial Akunlu army, but Ismail himself just saw this as a prime opportunity for some border expansion. Not wanting to have to fight a war on 2 fronts, Ismail requested that the Georgian kings of Alexander I and Constantine II attack the Ottomans so he wouldn't have to deal with them right now. In return, Ismail would cut the yearly tribute they had to pay to the Akunlu. Anyways, Ismail and Alvin's armies met in the fields of Sharum. Alvin's forces were 4 times larger than that of Ismail. Still didn't stop Ismail from absolutely destroying Alvin though. In the battle, Ismail had a 1-to-1 duel with an Akunlu general, which he won easily. I would like to remind you, this kid is 14.
Probably that's why he won. Because when you're 14, bro, you're shorter, your bones aren't properly developed. I mean, there's some advantages that an adult has, but I would say that he would be more agile overall because your bones aren't fused. And there's a bunch of things I could go on and on. So even though that's funny, when you really actually like think more about it, and think more practically, it's like, yeah, that makes more sense.
He then went on to conquer the major Persian city of Tabriz, where he crowned himself. No longer he was just the Shah of Azerbaijan, but now the Shah of Iran, founding his new dynasty, the Safavid dynasty. Don't ask me why he added the D. I don't know. Ismail first appointed his childhood teacher, Hussein Beg, to be his vicegerent, as well as commander-in-chief of the military, and chose Tabriz to be the imperial capital. Firstly, Ismail proclaimed Shia Islam to be the official state religion of the empire. And let's just say Ismail was gonna make sure the new religious policies were followed. When he first captured Tabriz, he proclaimed that he was going to execute anyone who didn't follow the new Shia form of worship. And during Friday prayers, he had Qizilbash troops surround the city to make sure no one was doing anything too Sunni. To strengthen his new Shia state, he proclaimed himself to be the Alid, a title associated with Ali and Hussein, as well as proclaimed himself to be the 12th Imam. Now, my dear viewer, you might be wondering, what on earth does that mean? And that's an excellent question, one that I'm not qualified enough to answer. These videos over here, they explain it better than I ever could. Links in the description. Anyways, Ismail also proclaimed to possess something called
I'll react to those in the future.
Farar in his spirit, something that is heavily associated with pre-Islamic rulers of Persia, such as Darius, Shapur, Khosrow, etc. He did all this to present himself as not just any king, but a divinely appointed king, chosen by God himself to lead his people. This was all actually very similar to divine right, which was being used by European rulers around this time. Also, if you were wondering what happened to those two Georgian kings, yeah, Ismail did a little trolling and broke his promise. Instead of ending the yearly tribute they had to pay, he instead annexed the two Georgian kingdoms as his vassals. This actually brought the end to an independent Georgia. Georgia would from then on be split between the Safavid, Ottoman, and later Russian empires, and Georgia would not become an independent country again until the 1990s. Now, you see.
However, Georgia was a part of the Trans-Caucasian Federation, but that wasn't Georgia though. Most people don't know what the Trans-Caucasian Federation was. It was a short-lived country that came out from the ex-Russian Empire. As the name suggests, it was basically a union of Georgia, Azerbaijan, and I think Armenia as well. Yeah. However, it was short-lived because when the Russian Civil War ended, the Soviet Union went and just invaded the place and annexed it. So
Ismail was now the Shah of Iran, but his kingdom didn't rule all of Iran. So you know what that means.
war.
Conquering time.
Why is everybody putting up with...
Dr. Morrison identified a paradox.
Eve to me is basically freedom. It's a giant open universe where
A Roblox fanatic? Microsoft Rewards has a brand new way for you to earn
Finally, now that the conquest was done and surrounding regions pacified, Ismail could finally start to run his empire. So, Ismail's entire ideology can be pretty much summed up as out with the new, in with the old. Ismail was a massive nerd for Persian history and literature. He wanted to look back in time, to bring back the old Persian culture and legacy, although this time with a Shia Islam flavor. Ismail was particularly fond of Persian poetry, like the Shahnameh. Ismail even wrote some poetry himself. Here's an example of some of his work. I'm not reading that. The second aspect to Ismail's ideology was Shia Islam. Ismail chose his empire to be Shia, so it can have something to distinguish itself from other Islamic empires, who are all
Interesting.
Sunni. So his ideology was a mixture of pre-Islamic and Islamic aspects of Iranian society, with a small hint of Turkic and Mongol culture as well, coming from the Qizilbash.
So the Safavid wasn't really an Iranian/Persian empire. It was a foreign entity that just simply ruled over the region of Persia. That's how I look at it.
Everything was looking up for Ismail. He had a massive empire, skilled advisors to help run it, the girl of his dreams by his side. He literally had his enemy's skull in his hands. Ismail was unstoppable. But now, Ismail had to turn to a growing crisis in the West. His rapid border expansion had gotten him a new neighbor, the Ottoman Empire. Ever since the Ottomans and Safavids had a common border, tensions were high. The two empires had even fought a few border skirmishes. Why? Because to the east of the Ottoman realm, in eastern Anatolia, lived many Shia Qizilbash tribes. Shia Qizilbash tribes that would gladly switch sides to the Shia Safavids. The idea of the Safavids owning that territory terrified the Ottomans. Not just because of the lost land, but also because if the Safavids owned the territory, they would have an easy entrance to invade the rest of the empire. Their fears weren't out of nowhere. A few years before, in 1511, the Ottomans had to put down a Shia revolt in the area, which may or may not have been sponsored by Ismail. The Ottoman Sultan, Bayezid II, had been watching the situation with growing concern. Or, well, he would have been if he wasn't overthrown by his son Selim, crowning himself as Selim I, better known as Selim the Grim, because he wasn't nice. So the thing you need to know about Selim was that he hated Shias. The first thing he did as Sultan actually was to pronounce Shia Muslims as unbelievers and heretics, a direct attack to Ismail.
Yo, I gotta look more into this whole Sunni Shia thing. I made like a few videos, but I feel like I really need to like dig deeper into this and drop more reactions on my like personal opinion on this. Even though I'm a Christian,
As tensions
but
rose in Eastern Anatolia, the two sent letters to each other full of nothing but insults. And finally, in 1514, Selim had gone a step too far. He had 40,000 Shias massacred.
whoa, that.
East, the two empires entered war.
Yeah, I hope this music isn't copyrighted. I really hope this music is copyrighted. I'm not gonna lie, the Ottoman anthem is a jam when you listen to it in a remix version.
Scorched earth tactics to slow down.
Ah.
It sorta worked, and the Ottoman army began to suffer attrition, which really pissed off Selim, prompting him to send a letter to Ismail calling him a coward. Ismail then responded to the letter by sending Selim a box full of opium to mock him, basically calling him a crackhead. Ouch! Selim was so pissed about this that he had the Safavid messenger cut to pieces. The two armies finally met in the southern Caucasus,
Poor guy.
beginning the famous Battle of Chaldiran. Ismail's advisor suggested that they should wait until nightfall before attacking, so that the Ottomans couldn't use their cannons. But Ismail considered himself a knight, so he just ignored them. The Ottoman army was a mixture of infantry and cavalry, with about 200 cannons. While Ismail
And he has no cannons. He has no cannons. He's outgunned. He's literally outgunned. Oh, that's not.
No cannons.
That's not.
The battle began with the Ottomans sending their janissaries forward, thinking that they could win just because of their firearms. Ismail personally led the cavalry charge, smashing into and breaking the janissaries' line. Ismail then gave chase to the retreating janissaries. In response, Selim sent his Sipahi cavalry to support the janissaries, but they were also repelled. Well, this has been pretty easy so far. Let's finish them. Ismail proceeded to split his forces into two and attack the Ottoman flanks, managing to charge very deep into the Ottomans' line. It was almost too easy.
Yeah.
And that's where it all went wrong. Selim knew Ismail was going to charge his flanks. He saw it from a mile away. It was too obvious. So he had his cannons aimed at his flanks. Ismail was exactly where Selim wanted him to be.
Bro, how do you fall for a trick this obvious, bro? How do you fall for a trick
The bombardment
this
was
isn't he supposed to be invincible?
Thousands of Qizilbash troops were shattered to pieces, one of them being poor old Hussein Beg. Ismail himself was wounded. Seeing his army all but massacred, Ismail ordered a complete retreat, with the Ottomans harassing them as they fled. With extremely high casualties on both sides, the Battle of Chaldiran was an Ottoman victory. Selim then marched on Tabriz, and his soldiers began to loot as they pleased. The most valuable thing they looted was Tajlu, taking her hostage. Selim didn't stay long, as his army was pretty much ready to mutiny.
It was a Pyrrhic victory. A big Pyrrhic victory, because his army took a lot of losses
He
too.
marched back
But
west
yeah,
and annexed the western chunk
yeah,
of
he still
Iraq,
won. So
Eastern Anatolia, Iraq, and the West Caucasus. Ismail was broken. He once thought of himself as invincible, but look at him now. Thousands of his loyal followers were dead, his self-confidence was shattered, his loving wife was gone. What was even left to live for? Ismail fell into a deep depression and turned to heavy drinking of alcohol. He refused to make any public appearances or even rule, leaving the government in charge of his new vicegerent, Mirza Shah, who became Ismail's only friend and best drinking buddy. Well,
yeah, he's gonna
all
drink
this
himself to
Qizilbash
death,
had
isn't
him
he?
murdered because they thought Mirza was becoming too powerful.
No, so much for that guy.
Meanwhile, Tajlu was forced by Selim to divorce Ismail and marry some Ottoman officer. Ismail tried to send messengers to get her back, but Selim had their noses cut off and sent back empty-handed. The last thing Ismail did as
You know what's funny is I'm pretty sure he could have bounced back from this. Like this wasn't really a catastrophic defeat. I think what really doomed Ismail is just his ego, like his pride. He just let
Shah,
he let one
there are
defeat
talks
took the
for an
best of him.
Ottoman alliance with the Habsburgs, but he would never finish it, as in June 2nd, 1524, Ismail passed away. He was only 36. Thus dies one of the most important men in Islamic history. He would be buried at a place I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce, nowadays a World Heritage Site. His son, Tashmasp, would ascend the throne soon after his father's death, despite only being 10, eventually growing to be the empire's longest-lasting ruler. The empire would reach its height, however, during the reign of Ismail's great-great-grandson, Abbas, better known as Abbas the Great. Ismail's legacy is massive. Here in the West, he's definitely less famous than some of his counterparts, but make no mistake, he's one of the big boys. Ismail was the man who
He's
made
one of the
Iran
big boys.
the main hub of Shia Islam that it is today.
I always actually wondered why freaking Iran is like basically like low key like the only like Shiite majority country in the whole Islamic world, aside from Azerbaijan.
The of Persian culture allowed it not only to just survive, but reach new heights, especially classical Persian literature, which inspired many more artists in the future. No wonder so many consider him the founder of modern Persia. And his Safavid empire will last for more than 2,000 years. Well,
Wow.
that wasn't until Nader Shah happened, but that's a story for another day.
Bro, 2000 years? Bro, that's still amazing. Like, most empires can't even last that long. Freaking, wow, 2,000 freaking years? Holy shit. Look, man, if you made it all the way to the end of the video, you're new to my channel, you have any suggestions like this, make sure you comment down below. If you're an active viewer and you have a lot of suggestions for me to react to, you could join my channel membership for 99 cents a month, where I will be able to respond to your comments a lot more quicker, give you more priority, respond to your replies, and a whole bunch of other perks that I explain in my membership video, which I will link in the comments down below. Thank you to the members who are already a part of that membership, man. Make sure you turn the bell button on, and thank you for watching, and goodbye.